It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Broadcasting from coast to coast.
City to city, coast to coast.
It's time for the Ryan Hickey Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If it's happening in sports, it's being talked about right here. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Good Thursday morning and welcome into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Ryan Hickey Show live with you until 11 a.m. Eastern. We appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully you had a great start, or I guess end to your weekend, I should say. I don't know why. Anytime I enter the show, I always forget what day it is, what month it is sometimes. For whatever reason, even though I only do the show twice a week on Monday and Thursdays, the days always blend together. When I do the Monday shows, I feel like it's Thursday. I always have to watch myself on Thursdays because I keep thinking it's Monday. But nonetheless, I welcome you in on this Monday. Hopefully you had a great weekend, past tense. I appreciate you starting your week with us right here on the Worldwide Sports Network. Again, here till 11 a.m. Eastern with a jam-packed show, as it always is, after an NFL Sunday full of NFL football. We have a lot to get to here. Unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys, and really unfortunate for Dak Prescott, just a heartbreaking, gruesome injury that occurred to the franchise quarterback in Dallas. But now that the injury has been sustained, now that Dak Prescott thankfully had successful surgery last night, as we learned late last night or this morning, the question is now, because of the contract situation, what is Dak Prescott's future in Dallas? Well, remember, he signed the franchise tag. He was only there for a year, this year, before he is again a free agent unless the Cowboys decide to franchise tag him for a second time. Why, to me, look at the situation. Andy Dalton, of all people, has a say in Dak Prescott's future in Dallas. I'll tell you what I mean. 15 minutes or so at 9:20. 9:40. This one hurts. Diehard, big-time Colts fan. Was not on board with the Phillip Rivers signing. And now through 5 games, Colts are 3-2. But should there be a quarterback change? I'll tell you why the answer to me is absolutely. At 9:40 Eastern, Phillip Rivers has really struggled, and the numbers back that up for sure. Second hour, 10 a.m. Eastern. If you're listening on the Great West Coast, 7 a.m. your time, the Atlanta Falcons made a move. In a year that there was question marks of, okay, because of the pandemic, because finances are tight, would NFL teams make moves? Would they fire head coaches? Would they fire GMs? Or would this be a year that almost, because of the circumstances, because off-season training wasn't normal, because it's expensive. I mean, it's flat out expensive from a business perspective to fire a head coach, to fire a general manager. Would there be any firings? Well, 5 weeks into the season, we already have 2 firings, 2 head coaches, 2 general managers, although one person took both of those roles in Bill O'Brien. But now Dan Quinn last night fired by the Atlanta Falcons. Thomas Dimitroff, their general manager, also fired. Why, to me, Arthur Blank made it personal, and that decision backfired. You never mix business with pleasure. Arthur Blank did that, and it did not work out great for him. 10:20 is always quick hits, a lot to talk about around the NFL. So much storylines hit on. And finally, 10:40, a wild, insane, crazy weekend of college football. Why the SEC, a conference we always talk about being the best, always talk about being the greatest. For whatever reason, they always try to and always tend to avoid chaos, right? Alabama, LSU, Georgia, all those teams always win. But guess what? Even the SEC, even in 2020, is not immune to chaos. I'll tell you what happened in case you missed it. But as always, we come to you as a reminder live from the Big Italy Pizzeria Studios. Great pizza, hot heroes, phenomenal dinners. Check out Big Italy Pizzeria if you're on Long Island. In Medford, Joe's Pizzeria in Bayshore. So either one. If you're out there on the eastern side, Medford. If you're out there in Bayshore, middle of the island, Joe's Pizzeria. Online, if you're anywhere, worldwide, at BigItalyPizza.com. So we have a lot of NFL to get into. Obviously, again, we are sitting here on a Monday after week number 5 of the NFL is almost basically complete. 2 games to go. The Monday nighter tonight. You have a Tuesday night Titans-Bills game, knock on wood, as long as the Titans tests come back positive. We'll have a Titans-Bills Tuesday night game. So a lot more football to go into here. But we do start with the biggest story of the day, as we always do at 9 a.m., and that is not football-related. That is NBA-related. In case you missed it, obviously the NBA Finals has taken a backseat to a lot of what's going on with the NFL. But last night, after losing Game 5, after wearing the Kobe Bryant Black Mamba jerseys where it felt like Friday night was going to be a coronation, and Jimmy Butler said, no way, not yet. The Los Angeles Lakers win their 17th NBA championship, tying themselves with the Boston Celtics for the most in NBA history. And more importantly, obviously the bigger story than just the Lakers winning their 17th is LeBron James winning his 4th championship with his 3rd different team, right? 2 with the Heat, 1 with the Cavs, and now 1 with the Lakers. And looking at really the entirety of the NBA bubble, right? Looking at even just going even past it, going further than that, looking at LeBron James's entire career. LeBron won his 4th title last night, doing what he's done throughout his entire career. Since he first was drafted to Cleveland, since he went to Miami, since he came back to Cleveland, when he went to Los Angeles, he won a title doing so what he's done again for his entire 17-year career. Silence the doubters. And I was one of them. Hand up. We will look back. I know, obviously, we will look back 10 years, 15 years, 20 years and be like, wow, how could anyone ever doubt LeBron? We just saw Michael Jordan, a little different. Right? The Last Dance documentary comes out this pandemic. All we see and all we hear about is Michael Jordan using the fuel from the doubters. But mostly a lot of praise towards Michael Jordan. LeBron James, best player in the world in your opinion, 2nd best player in the world in your opinion, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th. LeBron is one of those polarizing figures that people love to hate on. But one thing that cannot be argued throughout LeBron's entire career is that he's been doubted. And again, I was one of those doubters. I'm a LeBron fan, as weird as it sounds. I like LeBron. I know people really, he's one of those polarizing figures where you either love LeBron or you hate LeBron. There are definitely many qualities I love tweaking about LeBron. But if we're talking about the player on the court, everything he can do, how he makes everyone around him so much better, the circumstances he has to overcome in order to win a championship, to even get to a championship, a lot of that is fueled by doubt. And yours truly, as soon as really the Lakers got down to the bubble, I had my doubts and I had my concerns. And what does LeBron James do? Silence those doubts yet again. Lakers get down to the bubble. They're playing the best basketball of any team in the NBA right before the shutdown. LeBron James on a tear. They beat the Clippers. They beat the Bucks. They have some big wins going into that stretch. LeBron is playing like an MVP. LeBron was gathering momentum and had a chance, if there's no shutdown, to take the MVP away from Giannis and claim it for his own. But as we know, the shutdown happens. Have a little break from March. We come back in late July. The Lakers looked awful. And I had my doubts about the Lakers because of how bad they looked. You had those seeding games that go on. The Lakers' three-point shooting in those games was horrendous. Atrocious, actually. 2nd worst in the NBA in those seeding games. They're role players, they're bench players, right? Outside of LeBron, outside of AD. Kyle Kuzma, Danny Green, Rajon Rondo, Markieff Morris. Name, any player you want in there. I guess Rajon Rondo maybe will leave out because he was injured. Those role players, they needed to step up for LeBron. They needed to play well. We're not doing so. And that came to its ugly head. It reared its ugly head in that first game against Portland. And I'll never forget sitting here after that game 1, where the Trailblazers, in my mind, did not even play their best basketball game. Lakers clearly did not play anywhere near as good as they should be. And I thought, wow, the Lakers are in real trouble here. This is a team that could get bounced in the first round. I will never forget, after the opening weekend of games for the NBA playoffs, when it came down to the big 3 that we thought could win a title, right? It was still the Clippers, it was still the Bucks, and it was still the Lakers. I will never forget putting the Lakers 3rd on that list of the 3. A lot more faith in the Clippers, a lot more faith in the Bucks. And when it came to the Lakers, what I saw in those 8 seeding games, what I saw so far in that first game against Portland, I had a lot of doubts. Not really LeBron related, but it was more, can LeBron do enough to get these role players around him to play well? Because they were playing awful. And guess what? LeBron silenced those doubts, obviously, as we know, ran through Portland, ran through Houston, ran through Denver, and continued to run through the Heat in the finals to win his 4th championship. It was riddled with doubt to me in the bubble. I thought the Clippers by far were the better team. I thought the Clippers were even the better team in the playoffs when it came down before the season even stopped. When LeBron is playing great, and the Lakers are on a roll, again, right before the pandemic started, even then I thought, you know what? When it comes down to it, when push comes to shove, when it's Western Conference Finals time, I still have faith that the Clippers' depth can overcome LeBron's great play, can overcome AD's great play. I had my doubts, and I was wrong. And like I said, he's been doing it his entire career. And the narrative, it changes a lot about what there is to doubt about LeBron. But each and every time he comes back and proves them wrong. Now, it's funny to look back in retrospect with LeBron and his struggles to win a title and get his first title. All right, and now at least we sit here. Giannis got bounced for the second year in a row with the Bucks. Right, they didn't even make it to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. And there's now all of a sudden doubt and questioning about, well, is Giannis truly one of these elite players? Can he win a championship as the number one piece? This is really only Giannis's, third real year of winning a title? He was at an MVP form last year. We're up 2 against the Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals. Obviously, we know what happened there. Comes back, wins the MVP again. This time they get bounced by the Heat. And there's already questions about, will Giannis leave? Can he be the guy? And there's already doubts surrounding Giannis about if he could be the main guy leading a championship team. LeBron James, it took him 9 years of his career to win his first title. He was with crap for Cleveland when he was first drafted there. Somehow got one of the worst teams in NBA history to the finals in the first year. Amazing how he was able to do that. Goes to Miami, loses to the Mavericks, and we'll get to that in a second here. But it took him 9 years. 9. There was doubts about he could be the one. Could he get a championship? Could he be the reason why a team wins a championship? Right? He goes to Miami, everyone, including yours truly, bags on him, rides him, does not agree with the decision, ring chasing, and that really started a new era of free agency. So we all had our doubts. We had our doubts if he could be the one to win a championship. Goes to Miami. Right, he obviously has that corny intro press conference talking about not 8 titles, not 9 titles, not 10 titles that they're going to win with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. They make it to the finals in their first year in Miami. LeBron, as you know, plays one of the worst finals he could possibly play in his career against the Mavericks. Mavericks win. Big upset over the Heat. And there's tons of question marks. Can LeBron play well in the big moment? Because he really, up to that point, he has not. So there's questions about LeBron, and there's doubts about LeBron if he could actually be the reason why a team wins a championship. He silenced those. Goes back to Cleveland after winning 2 titles with the Heat. Down 3-1. Really, there's not even doubts that if they can make a 3-1 series comeback against the 73-win Warriors, because it was over. No one's done it. No one thinks this team could do it. LeBron, in part, wills his way. They win that championship in Cleveland. Once LeBron goes out west, what did we hear? And really, what did we hear up until that point, too, even before he made the decision to go out to Los Angeles? They always knock. Every time LeBron went to the finals, right? He's been to 9 finals out of 10 in the Eastern Conference with the Cavaliers and the Heat. We always kept hearing, oh, you know what? The East is so weak. LeBron just runs the East. You know what? He couldn't do it in the West. He couldn't get past the Warriors. He couldn't get past the Rockets. Couldn't get past the Clippers. The West is such a different challenge that sure, LeBron just beating up the Raptors again, beating up the Pacers again, beating up a young Celtics team. He can't win in the West. Goes to the West, wins the finals in his first year that he's truly healthy. Just completely, again, always silencing the doubters. And what he's doing now at age 35, winning his 4th finals MVP, now only trailing Michael Jordan, who has 6. I mean, you think about it, at 35 years old, this is his playoff, not the finals, not one series, his playoff stat line, 27.6 points per game. Shot over 55% from the field. And there was plenty of doubts about LeBron's shooting ability. Because he really struggled from 3. He even really struggled with the jump shot. It wasn't until midway through his tenure in Miami where he finally was confident shooting the basketball. There was confidence in him making jump shots because that was the book on LeBron. Make him shoot. Almost like a Ben Simmons now. Don't let him get to the basket, just make him shoot. And now in the finals, at age 35, he shot 55% from the field. Had a double-double because he collected over 10 rebounds a game and averaged 36 minutes per game at 35. And to be honest, watching him throughout these entire playoffs, outside of a game or two, he doesn't look like he lost a step. He's driving to the basket whenever he wants. He's pulling up from 3. He's pulling up from deep, 3 or 4 feet behind the line, knocking him down. He's getting hacked on his way to the basket, making those shots, drawing the fouls. We always talk about, Tyler Hero, I'm a bucket, right? That famous quote that Tyler Hero said and we heard throughout the playoffs. LeBron James was a walking bucket, though. When he wanted to score, he did. Drove to the basket, put his head down, no one was stopping him. Makes a jump shot, makes a mid-range shot. Silencing the doubters yet again. Congratulations to LeBron James. He deserves it. Because his entire career is doubt. He can't be the reason a team wins a championship. He'll never play well in the big moment. He can't knock down shots. He can't win in the West. He can't overcome this bad core that he had entering the bubble to win a championship. But now he's silenced all of those doubts and yet again wins his fourth title. Congratulations to you, LeBron. And the Lakers, big championship, and they are celebrating, I'm sure, very, very, very heavily. I'm sure J.R. Smith's shirt's still off right now, and I'm sure they are still chugging, celebrating, have a good time because they deserve it. So again, your final thoughts. If you watch finals, what's your reaction to watching LeBron James win the championship? Again, he's one of those guys, very, very polarizing. I'm very, very happy for LeBron James. He absolutely deserves it. Inching closer to Michael Jordan. So again, your reaction. What was it like for you watching LeBron James win his fourth title last night with the Lakers? Worldwide Sports Network on Facebook, WWSRN_radio on Twitter, or also on Twitter at Ryan Hickey Show. Tweet me your reactions, write on Facebook your reactions. We'll read them on the show. And when we come back, the biggest story of the NFL yesterday was unfortunately Dak Prescott getting injured. We'll tell you what that injury was. But more importantly, does Andy Dalton hold the cards for Dak Prescott's future in Dallas? I'll explain why next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
We are back here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network on this Monday morning, easy for me to say, reacting to LeBron James winning his fourth title. This one with the Los Angeles Lakers. Getting your thoughts. Incredible. Absolutely incredible what LeBron is able to accomplish yet again. Age 35. Another title. Good for you, LeBron. Very happy for you. So we're talking about that. Worldwide Sports Network on Facebook, WWSRN_radio on Twitter, or also on Twitter at Ryan Hickey Show. So we get your thoughts as we do move to the NFL. Right, a busy Monday, obviously a lot goes on every NFL Sunday. Week number 5, almost in the books. Chargers Saints tonight. Tomorrow you got Titans Bills. Now really put a book, or I should say put a close in to week number 5. But for the most part, a lot of games have occurred. And looking at what happened yesterday, look at the landscape of the NFL. Biggest news being Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott suffering a compound right ankle fracture, which essentially he dislocated his ankle. If you watch it live, I'm sorry. That was something where I was driving home, listening to the Colts game, cursing out Phillip Rivers for throwing another pick. God. We'll talk about that in a few minutes here. And then I get home, and all of a sudden Twitter explodes. Well, I guess already exploded, but now I kind of, venture my way, find myself on the scene here, just to seeing everything about Dak Prescott. Thoughts and prayers about all athletes, all, fans of any team wishing their best for Dak Prescott. And then I watched the video. Wow, it's tough. If you're squeamish, if you missed it, I would probably suggest maybe don't watch it. ESPN, I watch a lot after the game. After the Lakers won and after the Sunday Night Football game, they blurred it out. They blurred out Dak's ankle because it is it's tough. It is definitely tough to look at. If you remember what Gordon Hayward's ankle looked like when he dislocated his ankle in the first game for the Celtics, I believe that was 2 years ago. It's a tough look. It's an absolutely tough look. So our thoughts and prayers, first of all, with Dak Prescott. We hope for a speedy recovery. He had surgery last night. According to all indications, it went well. He'll probably now miss the rest of the season. And there's really no, easy way to transition to this. But because of his contract situation, because he signed the franchise tag, so it's only a 1-year deal, and he'll be a free agent after the season ends. What do the Cowboys do now? What do you do?
Good morning, Michael.
Because at least, looking at the landscape of of what's out there. It's crazy to say this, but this is to me what's gonna happen. Andy Dalton, the current now quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, in a way will have control and will dictate the future of Dak Prescott in Dallas. And here's what I mean by that. If Andy Dalton plays well, if he steps in, leads this Cowboys team to the playoffs, leads them to contention, you know what this does? This opens up other quarterback avenues and other options for the Cowboys to consider in 2021. So after Dak got hurt midway through the third quarter, Andy Dalton stepped in, threw for 111 yards, but more importantly, game on the line, tied 34-34. He led the drive for the eventual game-winning walk-off field goal to give the Cowboys a lead. And it made on that drive 2 gorgeous throws to Michael Gallup. One on the run on the sideline, another deep bomb along the sideline, one for 19 yards, one for 38 yards. Andy Dalton stepped in fine. He played well. He led that Cowboys offense, and again, it's the Giants. They moved to 0-5, so you want to take a little bit with the opponent, sure. But they won the game. Andy Dalton stepped in and helped win the game for the Cowboys. And now you look going forward, Andy Dalton, with the weapons that he has, in Amari Cooper, in Michael Gallup, in CeeDee Lamb, in Zeke Elliott, the offensive line is a little spotty, a little shaky. It's going to continue that way as we learn that Tyron Smith will be out for the rest of the year. That's a big blow. But this is the greatest group of talent that Andy Dalton's ever been around. Cincinnati, outside of A.J. Green, and that was when A.J. Green was on the field, there's not much to throw to. So look at now Andy Dalton having talent to throw to and rely on. Look at the fact that the division is just horrendous. The Cowboys right now are in first place with a 2-3 record. 2-3, first place in the NFC East. So you have a division that's absolutely wide open, up for the taking, with a team that's the most talented on paper of any team in the division. Let's also look at, too, Andy Dalton has led the Bengals to the playoffs. He's had regular season success. He's been in the playoffs 4 times. Now, he hasn't won a game. It's a whole different story. But it's like he's never been on the big stage. He's never guided the team to the playoffs. So it's set up here for Andy Dalton to have success. And if he does, if he uses the talent that he has, if he plays well, if he continues to lead the Cowboys to wins, this could have Jerry Jones come to the realization that, you know what? He doesn't need to break the bank, at the quarterback position. He can invest money elsewhere, which you look at the other side of the ball in the defense. They need a lot of help. Sign Dak Prescott to a massive deal. It's not going to make the defense any better. Dak Prescott was setting records. He threw for the most yards in NFL history through the first 4 games. Over 1,600 yards through the first 4 games. You know what the record was? 1-3. Because for how good he was, how good that offense was, that defense was pitiful, awful, and they couldn't overcome it. So now if Jerry realizes he can put money elsewhere, he doesn't need a top 5, a top 10 quarterback, or at least maybe even if you don't put Dak in that range, you don't need to pay a quarterback like his top 5. You can invest money elsewhere because Jerry's a businessman. Maybe that will be the best thing for your team going forward to win another Super Bowl. So you look back at the last offer on the table. Dak rejected a deal back in March. 5 years, just about $34 million a year. So you do some rough math. It's basically 5 years, $175 million. Dak said no thanks. He wanted more. He was betting on himself. Well, if that price doesn't go down, if Dak goes firm at whatever he, in his mind, thinks he's worth, whether it's $200 million or maybe it's even more than that, if Jerry wasn't willing to meet it then, if he wasn't willing to meet it last year, if he was willing to take the gamble, maybe even potentially pay more if Dak Prescott plays well in order to keep him on the team for 5 years or more, that was a big gamble he took, and guess what? What's going to happen now if Dak's price doesn't go down? I don't think Jerry's going to be willing to meet it, to be honest. If Dak is firm with whatever he thinks he's worth, and Jerry Jones sits there in his owner's box the rest of the season, watches Andy Dalton have success, lead this team to a division title, maybe even win a game or two. I'm not saying Andy Dalton himself could be the answer, but now you open up other options. You explore. You see, listen, who's going to take the first pick? What if the Jets get the first pick? Is Sam Darnold on the market? Do you have an interest in Daniel Jones if the Giants get the first pick? Could Matt Ryan be on the chopping block? with the Falcons now 0-5. I'm not saying Andy Dalton himself is the answer, but I'm saying if he plays well, he shows Jerry Jones that really you don't need a special elite type quarterback to run this offense and run it efficiently. This opens up other options. And guess what? You know what we know? As cold as this is, as harsh as this is, Jerry Jones isn't afraid to move on from his franchise quarterback. I mean, Dak Prescott knows that better than anybody. Cowboys draft Dak in 2016, just was going to be the backup, right? 4th-round pick. It was Tony Romo's job. That was his team. Well, Tony Romo gets hurt in the preseason. Dak steps in. Cowboys off to a hot start. Tony Romo loses his job, retires to the broadcast booth. Jerry Jones is not afraid to move on from his quarterback if injuries become a concern. He did it with Tony Romo. He could do it here with Dak, depending on how Andy Dalton plays. Because guess what? The flip side, we talk about the best case scenario, right? If Andy Dalton plays well, again, this is the greatest group of talent he's ever been surrounded with. The division is just terrible. So there's a real chance he can play well, lead this team to the playoffs. But what if he doesn't play well? What if he struggles? What if he plays bad? Total opposite's true. Dak Prescott now has all the leverage. Because up until this point, and part of the negotiations and why we thought Dak had the leverage, but maybe in reality he didn't, going back to the negotiations last year and this summer, was that for the most part, the Cowboys really never knew how green the grass was on the other side. They never really knew what life without Dak was actually like. They had an idea, they had a thought, but they never actually had a reality. So now this is the reality hitting them in the face. They will truly see how much of an impact Dak Prescott has on the field. And if Andy Dalton struggles, if this offense just doesn't play as well as they did with Dak Prescott under center, if they miss the playoffs, all of a sudden now, maybe Jerry Jones has second thoughts. Maybe that wallet expands a little bit more. You know what? Now he's more willing to meet Dak Prescott's needs. Because it's totally possible that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are taking Dak for granted. He's having success because the team we put around him is so good. Because I, speaking as Jerry Jones, did such a great job as general manager that I put all these pieces around him that really you could put anyone back there and they'll have success. Now we'll truly see that. So if that is the case, if Andy Dalton has success, if he plays well and leads them to the playoffs, Jerry Jones' theory is true. Now I think this means as harsh it is, and as sad as it is to have this, be the ending, I think that could mean the Cowboys could look elsewhere for a quarterback in 2021 that's not Dak Prescott. If Dak is still firm on the deal that he wants and the deal that he thinks he's worth. On the flip side, if Andy Dalton struggles, if that offense looked inept, if he just can't move the ball, can't utilize the weapons, all of a sudden now, Jerry has some decisions to make. He knows what life without Dak Prescott's like, and it's not a good life. So now all of a sudden, maybe he's more willing to go to Dak's side of the table. Maybe willing to cross that line and cater more to Dak than maybe other way around where he was hoping Dak was going to cater to him. So look at this injury and how brutal it is. It's going to be Andy Dalton's team the rest of the year. And good or bad, to me, Andy Dalton is going to have a major say on whether Dak is back in Dallas or not. To me, it's easy, right? Jerry wasn't willing to go to the table and pay him the big money last year. He didn't think he was worth it in his mind. Well, now you're truly going to see Dak Prescott's worth. He was playing out of this world through 4.5 games. The Cowboys are 1-3. If anyone can have success in this offense, if it takes an average quarterback and they can really get lifted up by the talent around them, you don't have to break the bank. You don't have to shell out top 3, top 2 money if you don't think the quarterback and Dak Prescott is worth it. You can put money elsewhere, especially in your defense, because Lord knows that defense needs a lot of help. And if he's bad, like you said, Dak's price goes up, his leverage gets greater. Now the Cowboys are really stuck paying Dak even more than they were supposed to pay him last year. So it's crazy to say this, but Andy Dalton himself holds the keys to the future of Dak Prescott in Dallas. Good or bad, I think Andy Dalton will have a major, major, major factor as to what the quarterback situation will look like for the Dallas Cowboys in 2021. So I'm curious your thoughts. Just first of all, seeing Andy Dalton step in last night, play well. Can he lead this team to the playoffs? Can he play well? And if he does play well, if he leads into the playoffs, hell, even gets a playoff win, should the Cowboys keep him? Should they move on from Dak? I'm curious. I'm really curious your thoughts. Because now we play these hypotheticals in our head. And it is a very sad reality. I'm not losing light on that. But now reality is hitting Dallas in the face. In one way or another, whether they want to or not, they're going to have their answer of what life is without Dak. And either it's going to be a good life, where they finally learn their answer and can go a different direction, or they're going to realize this is horrible. We took this guy for granted, and you know what? We got to make sure he can stay and be in a Dallas Cowboys uniform for the foreseeable future. So I'm curious your thoughts. Can Andy Dalton lead this team to the playoffs? They're in first place right now. He led the game-winning drive and threw some great passes to Michael Gallup. He stepped in and played well. And if he does play well, should the Cowboys keep him? So take your thoughts. Worldwide Sports Network on Facebook, WWSRN_radio. I see some comments already on Facebook. We will respond to those when we come back. WWSRN_radio, or also on Twitter at Ryan Hickey Show. Tweet me your thoughts, write on Facebook your thoughts, or read whether Andy Dalton, if he plays well, the Cowboys should keep him, and if Andy Dalton himself holds the future for Dak Prescott and Dallas. So get your thoughts. And when we come back, speaking of quarterback changes, speaking of the future of quarterbacks, the Colts have a major question on their mark. Phillip Rivers, should they consider a quarterback change? I'll tell you my answer next when the Ryan Hickey Show returns right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
This is a story about Billy Joe and Bobby Sue. Two young lovers with nothing better to do.
And we are back here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network on this Monday morning. Rainy, dreary Monday morning. We do appreciate starting off your week with us right here on the Worldwide Sports Network. We're here until 11 a.m. Eastern. Talking why Andy Dalton has the keys, has control of Dak's future in Dallas. Now, I threw out a few options there that Jerry could consider. If Andy Dalton plays well, he doesn't want to pay Dak the money, instead realizes he can get by with an average quarterback. And one of those teams I threw out there, the Giants, because they're 0-5 currently, could get the first number one overall pick. Maybe they move on from Daniel Jones. My guy Nicholas Jordan on Facebook writes, Daniel Jones, and then in all caps, LMAO. Picturing him in a Dallas Cowboys uniform trying to be the savior for Jerry Jones and for the Cowboys team. He's right. I probably shouldn't have included the Giants in that. I do think a brand new quarterback market, and I said this a few weeks ago on the show, is going to develop with guys like Sam Darnold, with guys like Daniel Jones himself. Continue to struggle if teams have doubts about if they could be the guy or not. Maybe they'll move on, cut bait quicker than normal. We saw the Bears kind of drag it out. Mitchell Trubisky, I think he knew the answer, but they wanted to give him one last shot because he was drafted so high, because Ryan Pace wants to keep his job and be proven right. They gave him one last shot. That's not going to happen. So guys like Daniel Jones, we could see getting the axe earlier than usual. But as Nick points out, I did include him. I should not have included him as potential replacements for Dak going forward next year. That will not be a very good option. I can promise you that. So thank you for calling me out on that one, Nick. He also loves the music. I knew he was going to love this one. Big Steve Miller Band fan. Love Take the Money and Run. The reason why we play Take the Money and Run, specifically now, come back for this one, is because really one quarterback right now has taken the money. And he's running because guess what? He has given nothing back, and that's Phillip Rivers with the Colts. Signed a big contract, $25 million, one-year deal. He took that money. He was supposed to come in here, give the Colts some competent quarterback play, lead them to the playoffs, and you see what happens and go from there. Kind of bridge the gap from where the Colts are now, which is a good team really without a quarterback, to hopefully draft a quarterback or sign a quarterback or trade for a quarterback somehow and get their franchise guy this offseason, maybe next offseason. He's going to be that bridge. 1 year, if things went really, 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 really well, maybe he'll get a second year. But right now, as Steve Miller Band says, Phillip Rivers is taking the money and he is running because right now he's giving you nothing on the field. For this example, yesterday, Colts lose to the Browns 32-23. in that game. Philip Rivers' stat line doesn't look awful. 21-33, 243 yards. But 2 costly, brutal, ugly, inexcusable interceptions. One that was returned for a touchdown. As Philip Rivers struggles yet again, for really the 5th time in 5 games. Hasn't really played well at all. Colts are winning really in spite of what Philip Rivers has put out on the field there. They beat the Vikings because their defense was all over Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins melted under pressure. Shocker. They beat the Jets because of the Jets. Shocker. And who did they play last week? Wow, I am blanking already. But he didn't play well last week either. Then when they needed him to play well, guy shows up. Guy puts the Colts in a bad spot, throwing interceptions, putting balls he shouldn't be putting them in. And now I think this is a valid question. 5 games in, should the Colts absolutely consider benching Philip Rivers, going to Jacoby Brissett, and making a move to try to save the season, salvage the season, which is kind of crazy to think about at 3-2. But this is a team that's built to win now. This is a team, especially with the Texans, their only true competition in the NFC South, off to a 1-4 start. They are not playing well at all. They are floundering. The Titans have COVID tests left and right. I'm still very skeptical of how good the Titans are, to be honest. I think it's a little bit flash in the pan. And I'm skeptical that they can repeat the success they had last year with Ryan Tannehill. So this division is absolutely up for grabs. And right now, Philip Rivers is not playing well. And I think that conversation absolutely needs to happen. There should be a real conversation. There should be a real thought process to putting Jacoby Brissett in, benching Philip Rivers going forward to try to save the season for a few years. Number one, Philip Rivers is absolutely not taking care of the football. He is doing the one thing really he was brought here not he, he was brought in here not to do, and that is turn the ball over. 3rd most interceptions in the league with 5, so basically 1 a game he's averaging. And out of those 5 interceptions, he routinely puts the ball in harm's way more than that. He has 5, and honestly, no joke, no exaggeration, no hyperbole. He has 5 interceptions. It could be 10. There was a few bad reads, a few dropped interceptions, a few tips away from doubling that total and really putting the Colts in an even worse spot that they're in right now. He's routinely putting the ball in harm's way. And Philip Rivers is so far his biggest problem. He has a gunslinger mentality, right? In his mind, he thinks he is Patrick Mahomes. He thinks he can make any throw possible. He can fit it in any tight window. He can rocket it in there, drop the ball in. So he has that mentality, but he has a noodle arm. He has a noodle arm. He shot puts the football. He does not have any arm strength. He really didn't have arm strength to begin with. That was not one of his strengths coming out of NC State. And now, as he gets older, as he continues to play, guess what? That arm strength has continued to decrease. So gunslinger mentality with a noodle arm is a recipe for disaster. Not even just not success, just disaster. Because the Colts built this team. Chris Ballard, the general manager, built this team to play great defense and run the football. They invested a lot of money in their defensive line, right? They just traded for and gave DeForest Buckner, a massive extension. They drafted really well in the offensive line, and they built their team based upon the offensive line. Even when Andrew Luck was here, a lot of the offensive linemen, a lot of Frank Reich's mentality was to run the ball. They had run the damn ball hats. They wanted to embrace and being a physical football team. And that has gone, so far, that has gone according to plan. They were playing absolutely great defense. They're the number 1 DVOA defense in the league heading into yesterday's game against Cleveland. They run the ball really well. They run the ball really, really, really well with Jonathan Taylor getting out a lot of the carries because Marlon Mack is hurt. But routinely, Philip Rivers is ruining that formula, putting the Colts in positions to lose because he's constantly putting the ball in harm's way. So if you want a quarterback that's there to not turn the ball over, which is really what you need when you're built on running the ball and playing defense, Jacoby Brissett fits the bill. Jacoby Brissett does not turn the ball over. He's very careful with the football. And now, despite that, not only is Philip Rivers not taking care of the football, their red zone efficiency, the Colts, once they get to the red zone, just come to a screeching halt. Their red zone efficiency is awful. Heading into yesterday's game, they were 28th in red zone conversion percentage. That means how many times did they got inside the 20 and scored a touchdown? They were 4th worst in the NFL at 28th in the league. They're scoring touchdown just 46% of the time they reach the red zone. And that continued again on Sunday. They went 1 for 4 in the red zone, scoring 1 touchdown on the opening drive. Didn't reach the red zone and scored a touchdown again. Reached the red zone 3 times, kicked 3 field goals. Can't be 7 for field goals. Can't do it. And they continually do it week in and week out. So this has been an absolute nightmare because not only are they not converting the red zone, not only are they not scoring touchdowns, and again, continuing to settle for field goals, which keeps teams in the game. And thank you for the Colts defense. They bailed them out. But they routinely do not put teams away. And not only do they not score touchdowns in the red zone, Philip Rivers is still throwing balls and putting balls into windows that should be turned over. There was one drive yesterday I was watching. I forget, it was in the fourth quarter. I believe it was when the Colts scored their final field goal. They were down by 9. They were driving the ball. They reached the red zone. Goal-to-goal situation. 3 passes in a row. Philip Rivers threw the ball, either overshot his receiver, put the ball in harm's way, stared down the receiver, and it almost was picked. And the Colts were lucky to get a field goal out of that situation. So now, all of a sudden, Frank Reich, an aggressive play caller, wants to go on a fourth down, wants to push the envelope, wants to push the ball down the field, is forced to be very conservative, call easy, simple plays, because Philip Rivers does not take care of the football. So he's turning it over. This team comes to a screeching halt once they reach the red zone. And to be honest, like I said earlier, they've won in spite of Rivers so far. Honestly, if I ask you right now, I understand a lot of you haven't watched a lot of Colts games. I don't blame you. But what has Philip Rivers done to elevate this team? When has he really ever put the team on his back, whether it's even just one drive, let alone one quarter or one game? When he's made the team better, when he's bailed the team out, when he's been the reason why they win games. First game against Jacksonville, they were not the reason why they lost. Well, I'm sorry. He was far from the reason why they lost, but he did nothing to help the team out. Again, that was really where the first problem started. He had some bad turnovers. The Vikings game, they kicked a million field goals. It feels like the defense was so in Kirk Cousins' face. Same with the Jets, with Sam Darnold. The defense won those games. But when you, in a game like this, against a good Cleveland Browns team, you needed the quarterback to step up and make plays. And instead, what happened? Philip Rivers turned the ball over. He made some poor decisions. Even when he's making good decisions, he's making some bad throws. His accuracy is waning. Like we talked about earlier, his arm strength is shot. There's a few times where receivers are open and he's bouncing the football. 15 yards on the field, he's bouncing the football. If he's not bouncing it, he's overthrowing it and putting the ball in harm's way. This Colts team, even before the season started, was designed to be at their best when they're throwing the ball 18 to 20 times. When you don't have Philip Rivers, you don't ask him to do too much. Make a few throws here or there. When you establish the run, when you're getting a good ground game, that's when he's at his best. The play action works great. In small sample sizes, that's, in theory, when he's supposed to be at his best. Not when he's throwing it 30 to 35 times a game. Not when he threw it over 40 times in the first game against Jacksonville. Yesterday, he threw for 33 times. And again, a lot of that's out of necessity because he's turned the ball over, not putting the team in positions to succeed, and now they're forced to dig out of a hole. They were down 17 yesterday at one point. So this is Jacoby Brissett. Say what you want to him about his aggressiveness, pushing the ball down the field, which is what Frank Reich writes. He would bring stability to the position. Because yesterday, in a game that was up for taking, Baker Mayfield, after having an elite first half, playing really well, carving up that Colts defense. But this was really the first game where the Colts defense struggled mightily. Jacksonville, still, they had some issues too, but Baker and that Browns offense was having their way in the first half. 20 points. Baker in the second half had just 2 completions for 19 yards, including 2 interceptions. The Colts defense had everything possible in the second half to give them a chance to win. And what did Philip Rivers do? Threw a pick six, threw another interception, had an awful safety in the end zone where he felt the pressure early on, threw the ball away, panicked, and threw it away. Something you would not see from a veteran quarterback. Cost the Colts 2 points. So the Browns in the second half scored 12 points. 9 of those was single-handedly because of Philip Rivers. Think about that. Colts lose by 9, and the 9 of the 12 points in the second half scored by the Browns were single-handedly because of Philip Rivers. So I ask you, because I asked Frank Reich this, I want to ask Frank Reich this. Not that I did. I don't have any access to him. But I would if I saw him. What are you thinking? How can you keep on defending this guy? In his post-game press conference yesterday, Frank Reich said he thinks Philip Rivers is playing good football. He's far from the problem. I don't know what Frank Reich is watching. I'm a big fan of Frank. This is really the only time I would ever criticize him. He's trying to defend Philip Rivers. Because I can tell you right now, even Stevie Wonder can see that Philip Rivers stinks. So that's why I'm legitimately serious with the Colts. Jacoby Brissett has to be the answer. I'm sorry. The Philip Rivers experiment, 5 games, has not gone well. They're 3-2 again, in spite of how he's played so far. Before the season gets away from him, before they really hit the meat grinder of their schedule, because the second half of their schedule is really tough. They play a lot of good teams. Get out ahead of it. Try to salvage the season and put a quarterback back there that can be trusted, that won't put the ball in harm's way, and you won't have to win in spite of. You won't have to overcome. Because through 5 games, again, that's all the Colts have done so far. Win or loss, they have to had overcome Philip Rivers. So I'm curious your thoughts. If you're a neutral observer, if you watch more Philip Rivers games, should the Colts consider benching Philip Rivers? I'll ask you this. How about I'll even ask you this if you haven't really watched him too much. Do you fear the Colts if Philip Rivers is the quarterback? Right? If you're a team in the AFC, if you're the Steelers, if you're, the Patriots, I wouldn't even put the Chiefs there because they're laughing. The Raiders, the Titans, the Steelers, the Browns. Do you fear Philip Rivers if your team is going against the Colts? Because I know my answer, and it's not yes. It's absolutely not yes. So the Colts absolutely have to make a decision here. Bench Philip Rivers. Let's go to Jacoby Brissett and hit the reset button next year. Have my eyes set on it. Sam Darnold, 2021. Make the move, Chris Ballard. Got to do it. But for right now in 2020, to me, Philip Rivers is not the answer. So take your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network. Twitter, WWSRN_radio. At Ryan Hickey Show on Twitter. Should the Colts consider benching Philip Rivers? When we come back, another head coach, another general manager lost their jobs. Well, Arthur Blank made it personal. He mixed business with pleasure, and it came back to bite him. Tell you what that means next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And we are back here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, hour number 2. Coming to you live, as we always are, from the Big Italy Pizzeria Studios. Whether it's great pizza, hot heroes, phenomenal dinners. Check out Big Italy Pizzeria in person in Medford, their sister store, Joe's Pizzeria in Bayshore, or, of course, online, anytime, anywhere. BigItalyPizza.com. Hour number 2 here, going to 11 a.m. Eastern. Come back with a little Panama here. As unfortunately, Eddie Van Halen did pass away from cancer last week. We send our well wishes to him and his family. Hopefully, my guy Nick is still listening. He's a big Van Halen fan. So we do send our well wishes here as 2020 claims another good soul, that is for sure. Fun story about Panama, too. I've only done karaoke once in my life. It was back in college, and this was the song. One of my friends, Mike, big Panama fan, and we did karaoke to Panama. Spoiler alert, did not go well. Did not go well at all. But hey, figure this is a nice little tribute. And why try to sing it myself if I can let Van Halen do it himself? So we do send one more time our well wishes to him and his family as well. We're talking a lot about Philip Rivers here. Should the Colts bench Philip Rivers? They gave him a big contract this offseason, a 1-year deal. Basically took a big chance, a big risk here. And it is not panning out so far. The Facebook comments are blowing up. We'll start with the most recent comment I made, because my guy Nick was also there for the night that we did karaoke. He said, worst karaoke performance I've ever seen, no joke. He's not wrong. I'm not even sure if I got one word in on time. Mike took the lead. He definitely was a lead singer for sure. He knew what he was doing. I did not. We both, literally killed it. Not killed it in a good way. Killed it in a bad way. If you didn't listen to that song before, you would never want to listen to that song ever again. Definitely ruined it for sure. And Nick is no joke, no exaggeration. He said the worst karaoke performance he's ever seen. There's a reason why, for me, it was one and done. It was so bad, I was like, there's no hope here. Nothing can get any better than this, or nothing can get any worse than this. You know what? We're just going to call it a career. So I'm sorry. Thankfully, Van Halen was not there to hear it, or else his ears might have been bleeding. That was, as Nick writes, as a witness, the worst karaoke performance he'd ever seen. No joke. Nick also writes on Facebook, since we are talking about Philip Rivers, so you are talking about him just being brutal. said the second biggest bet of his entire NFL season was Phillip Rivers under 26.5 passing touchdowns. He asks how he's looking. I'll say pretty good. Pretty damn good. If you bet, honestly, the over-under of 4.5 touchdowns, if it was up to me, that bet would be looking pretty good. Phillip Rivers, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions this season. If I was Frank Reich, if I was the Colts, I would not let Phillip Rivers, outside of injury, attempt another pass this season. No joke. I'm that done. I'm that over it. You took a risk. You took a gamble. Did not play off a time to cut bait here and save the season. This season cannot go down because of Phillip Rivers. We've seen teams like the Giants with Eli Manning hold on too long, hurt their future, maybe even set themselves back a few years because they refused to move on. They refused to draft a quarterback and tried to squeeze every ounce of life they had out of Eli Manning. That's different. He won 2 Super Bowl titles. I understand there's a pull there. You want to do the right thing for your franchise guy. Didn't agree with it? You can at least make an excuse for it. For the Colts of Phillip Rivers, there's no sentimental value there. There's no holding on to goodwill. It should be one and done. It should be 5 games and done. And Nick also knows, since he saw my tweet yesterday, he knew, and he's right. I've been waiting for that Stevie Wonder joke that even Stevie Wonder can see that Phillip Rivers stinks. I've been waiting for that. I put it on Twitter. It came to my mind yesterday as soon as I saw Frank Reich basically saying that Phillip Rivers is not the problem in Indianapolis. And I couldn't wait. That was the first thing when I started the segment. I was like, I got to incorporate this somehow. So Nick does know my strategy for sure. And I don't make many jokes. I really don't. I'm not that funny. I try to make jokes. A lot of them don't land. But when one does land, I'm just going to milk that one. Keep on milking it. Let it ride. And that happened to be the Stevie Wonder can't even see that Phillip Rivers stinks joke. That's probably the quota for the year. It's October 12th. We have 2 months left of this 2020 year. That's probably the quota. I think I'm good for jokes for the rest of the year for sure. But if you think Phillip Rivers should stay the quarterback, I mean, if you're a fan of the other team, I would definitely say that answer is yes. Love your thoughts. Worldwide Sports Network on Facebook. Twitter, WWSR_radio. Also on Twitter, at Ryan Hickey Show. So get your thoughts throughout the show here as we go to 11 a.m. Eastern, the top of the hour. We did have a coaching change yesterday. We did have a general manager change yesterday. And see what the Falcons did. Firing Dan Quinn, firing Thomas Dimitroff, is the latest example of why bad teams stay bad. Why the old saying goes, you don't mix business with pleasure, and that truly is a very sound business idea. Because yesterday the Falcons, a potential, now not a lot of people say this, but there are some rumors, there are some thoughts out there. There was some flirtation. The Falcons, because they had a Todd Gurley, because they have Julio Jones and Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley, they added Hayden Hurst. The offensive line at least is filled with first-round draft picks. Whether they lived up to that potential or not, they filled with talent that was supposed to be good. There was some thought that maybe the Falcons could be a spunky team that fits in that 7th and final wildcard team. Maybe they can make some noise here and just be a contender. But instead, they fall to 0-5 on the season as they fall to the Panthers 23-16 yesterday. Teddy Bridgewater carving up that Atlanta secondary, carving up that Atlanta defense. And that was finally, for Arthur Blank, the straw that broke the camel's back. And to me, this decision, again, highlights why bad organizations remain bad. Here's what I mean by that. Last year, this decision should have been made last year. By not making it on time, by not making a decision when they should have, all they did was set themselves up to delay the inevitable, and that pushed their timeline back year after year after year. Arthur Blank let his emotions overrule the fact that Dan Quinn should not have been brought back last year. They were 1-7 heading to the bye in 2019. They had a bye week, apparently, allegedly, according to Arthur Blank. Dan Quinn all of a sudden came to this realization, had his seeing God moment, woke up and realized, wow, I got to change what I'm doing here. We got to finish this up. Then the Falcons went on to finish 7-9. So it's 6-2 down the stretch, the last half of the year. And because of that, because the players really fought for Dan Quinn, really played their hearts out to save Dan Quinn's job, Arthur Blank thought, it's going to be a good idea. This team obviously is inspired by him. We're going to bring him back. We're going to bring him back for 2020. We're going to do it. F it. Let's do it. He allowed his emotions to cloud his judgment, And now guess what? Instead of hitting the reset button in 2019 like they should have, realizing this is a bad head coach with a team that needs a shakeup, you were hitting the reset button 5 games into your 2020 season. You could have been starting the new era in Atlanta. And I'm not talking about starting over or rebuilding. You could have brought a new head coach in here to change things up, maybe give this team a spark that they need, and maybe be that spunky playoff team that people thought they were going to be. But instead, they're sitting at 0-5. And now finally they hit the reset button a year too late. Maybe even, depending on who you ask, 2 years too late. So a team ready to win now, a team that's not in the rebuilding stages, a team that has a lot of talent, is yet again part of another lost season. Another season down the tubes, another season down the drain. And into this core that is built nicely in Atlanta, that their goal is still to win a Super Bowl, another year is gone. And guess what? They're not getting any younger. Matt Ryan is 35 years old. He'll be 36 next season. Time's ticking if you want him to win a Super Bowl. If you want him to raise that Lombardi trophy as a member of the Falcons, time is ticking. Julio Jones, Todd Gurley, Hayden Hurst, Calvin Ridley, these are all players on offense. They should be in a playoff position. There's no excuse for them to be 0-5. There's no excuse for them to be hitting the reset button 5 games into the season, be in the same conversation as the Jets and the Giants, as the only winless teams in the NFL. It's like, pick the thing that doesn't belong. If you had the Jets, the Giants, and the Falcons, who doesn't belong here? Well, based on the roster, it would be the Falcons. But because, again, Arthur Blank let his emotions get the best of him, because he liked Dan Quinn, because he really thought that the players actually fought for Dan Quinn last year, he was swayed by that. He thought, you know what? It's a good idea. Let's bring him back. Didn't deserve to get brought back. Forget the fact that they've gone 7-9, missed the playoffs again with this core that should be, again, competing to win division titles every single year. Couldn't afford to throw away a year like they did. Couldn't afford to do it, and yet they did. And here they are again. Not to mention, forget the record alone as why Dan Quinn should have been brought back. This defense, Dan Quinn's specialty, was dreadful, awful, putrid, disgusting. Heading to yesterday's game, which another bang-up job by that Dan Quinn-led defense, Atlanta was 25th overall in DVOA on defense. Basically, they're the 25th efficient team on defense out of 32. For a defensive-minded head coach, that's probably not good. They were 31st. They were the second worst pass defense team in all of the NFL. And obviously, as you know, through the course of this season, they blew a 15-point lead to the Cowboys, followed that up a week later by blowing a 16-point lead to the Bears. And now that leaves the Atlanta Falcons and Arthur Blank picking up the pieces after another lost season, after another season that's wasted, that's gone, where you get a chance to rebuild on the fly, do similar to the Packers did, where they brought a new head coach in, but a lot of the core players stayed the same. Look where the Packers are, 13-3 last year, undefeated this year, 4-0. That should have been what the Falcons were. They didn't need to rebuild. They needed to tear it down. They had everything ready to win. They just needed a head coach that could get the best out of his roster. And because Arthur Blank liked Dan Quinn, because he had a close connection with him, because he was swayed by the last 6 games when the team was already at the playoff hunt, when the team was already out of the discussion, that 6 games led him to make the decision to bring him back, and now those 6 games are the reason why the Falcons are 0-5, rebuilding yet again in 2020, and have another year wasted with this core that they're trying to get a Super Bowl with, that is talented on offense to be a legitimate playoff contender. So the Falcons are going to Falcon, and they are yet to pick up, or they are here left, to pick up the pieces yet again for another wasted and lost season. So I'm curious your thoughts, too. I would say, should the Falcons have fired Dan Quinn earlier, but that's an easy answer. But how about this? Now that there are 2 job openings, the Texans and the Falcons, which one is more attractive? The Texans obviously have the better quarterback. And I would still go with the Texans here. But the Falcons have a lot of talent. That team is 1, 2, 3 pieces away from rebuilding, turning it around, and being a legitimate contender next year. I don't think you could say that about the Texans. Texans have a quarterback and nothing else. The Falcons really have a lot of pieces on offense ready to win now if you're a head coach. So which job in your mind is more attractive, the Falcons or the Texans? We'll get your thoughts. Worldwide Sports Network on Facebook, WWSR_radio, or Ryan Hickey Show also on radio. And when we come back, as always, the Week 5 edition of Quick Hits go around the league. No karaoke involved. Definitely no karaoke involved, so your ears will be saved. Put some quick hits around the league, including a Thursday night thought that is just going to frustrate me to the end of time coming from that Bears-Bucks game. We'll discuss it all next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
A random observation really quickly that I just discovered, and maybe this is just me not realizing, this is a lot of you discovered because a lot of you are a lot smarter than I am, but YouTube ads have gotten really, really creative so far. And what I mean by is, I do use YouTube for a lot of the beds we have come back. I'm using YouTube right now to play the NFL music bed here. But they usually, obviously there's always a ton of ads, right? They want you to upgrade to YouTube TV, upgrade your account to pay for it. So in order to convince you to do it, they play just a ton of ads to get you frustrated. And now I just realized, not only are they playing ads and like doubling up on ads, you can't just click away from the tab and then come back. Because what I did is I started them, I saw there was going to be some ads, so I started playing the music, and then I went to just Twitter just to see what's going on, catch it, make sure I'm not missing anything during the show. Then I come back to the YouTube link, and it's like it paused, waiting for me to return. It knew I left, and it wasn't going to continue to play the ad until I was there actually watching it. That's crazy. That just blows my mind. YouTube is getting smarter and smarter. These ads it's harder and harder to get away from these damn ads. Advertisers are getting their money's worth, that's for sure. But nonetheless, we are back here on the Worldwide Sports Network for another 40 minutes or so until 11 a.m. Eastern. Doing as we do every Monday after the NFL season. 10:20, quick hits. Around the league, some thoughts about some games and some players. We didn't have time to really dive into too much, but just some observations around the league after yet another busy NFL Sunday, this time week number 5 edition. But before we get to Sunday's action, I do want to go back to Thursday night. This is the one thing about not doing the show on Friday, doing a Thursday leading into the Thursday night games, that you can't really react to a lot that happens on Thursday night until Monday. And usually, for the most part, I don't really reference, especially quick hits, too much action that happens on Thursday night. But this is something I do want to bring up. The Chicago Bears are such frauds. It's honestly infuriating at this point. Like, how they are 4-1, I can't answer. It's mind-boggling. I know 2020 has been one of these upside-down years, right, where honestly nothing makes sense. But even in this year, where everything is is unbelievable, is reality, right? Really, honestly, nothing makes sense. It's almost opposite day. The Bears being 4-1 is still hard to contemplate, hard to comprehend. So despite on Thursday night playing the Buccaneers, where they were outgained by Tampa Bay, the Bears went just 3 of 10 on third down, and they rushed for a total of 35 yards in the entire game. They won the game, and now again are sitting at 4-1 in the NFC North. So they played 5 games so far. That's 20 quarters of football that they played. I think realistically, you could say they played 2 good quarters of offensive football out of 20. 2. And somehow they're 4-1. Fool's gold. So if you're on the fence, maybe you start, maybe the Bears are actually a good team. I'm telling you, don't do it. Weird to say 4-1 a team is not good. But I'm telling you, don't buy into the Bears' biggest frauds. Eventually, reality has to hit them. Because somehow they talk about smoke and mirrors. Mitchell Trubisky plays the quarter of his life against the Lions in the opener, save his job for just another game. Nick Foles plays the quarter of his life against the Falcons, but again, it's the Falcons, so they give away every single lead. And somehow, yet again, this team is 4-1. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But we'll get to Sunday's action. How about those Browns? And it pains me to say this as a Colts fan, watching that game yesterday. Colts absolutely should have won that game. But I'll give credit to Cleveland. 4-1. Solid wins against the Cowboys and now against the Colts. They're 4-1 for the first time literally in my lifetime. Since 1994, the year I was born. 26 years since the last time the Browns were 4-1. You know who's their head coach? Bill Belichick. Good old times. Good old times. First time, so good for you, Cleveland. 4-1. And they're doing it with the right scheme. Their running game is solid. Kareem Hunt did a nice job yesterday filling in for Nick Chubb. Not the same, but still did a nice job. Baker looked really good in the first half. And he's fitting in nicely to this Kevin Stefanski offense. The play action is working really well for him, getting him outside the pocket, rolling him out. He looks at where he is most comfortable. Last year, Baker always looked uncomfortable, didn't really know what he was doing, didn't feel confident in the offense that was running. And now 5 games in, he looks comfortable, he looks in control, which is more important, and helping guide this team to 4-1. So congratulations to you, Cleveland. Again, you beat Phillip Rivers. Not that easy to, not that hard to do, I should say. But hey, nonetheless, not taking anything away from you. 4-1, good for you, Cleveland. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. How about those Raiders? Raiders. 40-32 over the Chiefs. And honestly, to me, this game encapsulates the frustration that Raiders fans and even John Gruden that we see on the sideline has with Derek Carr. Because he shows you the potential that he could be a pretty good to above average quarterback. Throwing touchdown passes all over the yard, dropping dimes to Henry Ruggs yesterday. Honestly, out-dueling Patrick Mahomes in his own home stadium. Carr has talent to be a pretty good quarterback. He has the weapons to be a pretty good quarterback. And Henry Ruggs looks like a handful so far. Darren Waller is just unguardable because of his size. Josh Jacobs is great. This team has weapons to be successful. And they showed you the potential of how good they could be. So good for you, Las Vegas. This is a spunky team that I honestly can't put my finger on. They squeak out a win against the Panthers in week 1. They had a nice win over the Saints. They had a nice win over the Chiefs. But then again, they'll go in the tank. I know the Bills are a good team. Especially defensively, the Bills are a very good team. Nothing to take away from there. But they'll go in the tank sometimes. They'll lose some games and you have your head scratching saying, how do they lose those games? How do they just get out-competed? But they do. But great, solid, absolute win. Because I'll be honest, after that Ravens game on Monday night 2 weeks ago, the Chiefs looked invincible. I know it was only, I think at that point, 3 games in. I think, that was the 3rd game of the year. I legitimately started thinking about, could this team go 16-0? Could they go 19-0? Could they do something the Patriots couldn't do? Because they looked that good. They had so many weapons. It was so hard to slow them down. I legitimately, 3 games in, called premature. Obviously, it is premature. I thought this team could honestly make a run to be undefeated. Good for you, Raiders. Played a great game. Now, can you do Las Vegas a favor? Can you bottle that? Can we put this game yesterday in a bottle and bring it out week by week? So they showed you how good they can possibly be. They showed you they could be, a legitimate playoff team and a tough out in the playoffs. The issue is consistency. And it starts with Derek Carr. How about the feel-good story, not only of yesterday, but honestly, of 2020 so far in the NFL? A sight that, I'll be honest, I didn't think we'd see again. I don't think a lot of people thought we would see again, and that's Alex Smith on a football field. But yesterday that happened. Almost 2 years. A month short of 2 years that Alex Smith was last on the field. Obviously, when he just completely shattered his leg, unfortunately, that gruesome injury.
I fell in love with country music when I was a little girl.
Oh, see. Now we have more ads playing, and now I can't even. The worst part is I can't even. We'll just lower the music here for a second. I can't even switch away from the ads. So as I said, if I switch away, they're just going to be sitting there waiting for me to come back. Damn YouTube, man. These algorithms. These guys are honestly too smart. Now he's screwing up the show. So we have, 4 seconds left in the second ad. We'll wait for it to go. Can't exit out of the page because it'll just sit there waiting for us. But now we're back in business. There we go. So like we were saying, the feel-good story of the year, one of the best stories ever in the NFL, and that's Alex Smith returning to the field like he did yesterday. It's been almost 2 years since he last on the field when his leg was shattered. He did that E60 documentary basically highlighting just the struggles of him returning, what he had to go through, just to be able to walk again and save his leg. All the surgeries that he had to do just in order to keep the leg to be able to walk again. Forget getting on a football field, but forget having mobility and building up to be strong enough to take a hit. Just the fact to walk again was a massive struggle. And seeing him back on the field yesterday because Kyle Allen got hurt was awesome. Stats honestly don't even matter. I'm not even going to read the stats because they're irrelevant. Alex Smith just getting on the field yesterday was awesome. Congratulations to him. Just honestly showed as cliched it is, as corny as it is. He really proved out if you can put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. He and his mind was motivated to get back on the football field despite the fact that medically seemed impossible, realistically seemed even more impossible. He did it. That was awesome yesterday. Seeing his wife and kids in the stands and their reaction to him being on the field was so cool. It's good for you, Alex Smith. Again, easily the comeback player of the year. Without a doubt. I mean, the award's already over. One of the best stories of 2020 by far. Maybe if even the best. Awesome to see Alex Smith back on the field, back playing again. And seeing all that work for 2 years pay off the way he wanted. How about last night's game? Seahawks-Vikings. What I took out of last night's game, to be honest, was that Russell Wilson reminded me a lot of Patrick Mahomes and his Chiefs offense. And not through the physical talents, but here's what I mean by that. The Chiefs under Mahomes, with Andy Reid as the head coach, and how they've really been operating the last 3 years since Mahomes took over on a full-time basis. This is one of those teams you can't count out. You can't keep down for 4 quarters. And really your best bet is to just survive them. That's all you can do. You can't slow them down. You can't stop the Chiefs. You just got to survive and hope that you can score more points than them. Russell Wilson and the Seahawks offense did yesterday reminded me so much of the Chiefs, and here's what I mean by that. The offense struggled for the Seahawks for 3 quarters. They were shut out at halftime. They didn't convert a third down all game. Think about that. They were 0 of 7 on third down for the entire game. Didn't convert 1 third down. The Vikings ran essentially 30 more plays than the Seahawks did yesterday. The Vikings ran 83 offensive plays. The Seahawks only ran 52. They were outgained by 135 yards. So you would think, if I just read you this, they didn't convert a third down all game. The Vikings ran 30 more plays. They were outgained by 135 yards, and they're shut out at halftime. If I asked you to predict a score or how much the Seahawks lost by, you're saying 10, 14, maybe even 20 points. This could be easily a blowout. But what the Seahawks did is that exactly what the Chiefs do. As soon as you give them that breath of life, as soon as you open the door just a hair, just a crack, Mahomes and that offense kicks down the door and they take the game. And that's what Russell Wilson and the Seahawks said yesterday. The Vikings gave them a breath of life. Kirk Cousins turned the ball over. All of a sudden now there's a short field for Russell Wilson to work with. The Seahawks offense comes alive. In less than 2 minutes, they go from down 13-0 to up 21-13. Literally in the blink of an eye. Bang, bang, boom, one mistake, all of a sudden, here you go. You go from up 13, in control of the game, to you're down by 8 points playing catch-up. And the Vikings go for a 4th down and 1 to try to ice the game away. Right call. I like the call because guess what? You get 1 yard. You win the game. Despite the fact that you give yourself a chance to win the game, you get 1 yard, you win the game. And honestly, Alexander Madison, he ran inside. If you run outside, it's 1st down. Game over. But you gave the breath of life to the Seahawks. 94 yards. Russell Wilson capitalized. It showed you why it's so hard to keep the Seahawks team down. And it reminded me so much of what Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs accomplish routinely, week in and week out. You can't keep them down. You can't slow them down. You can stop them for a half. You can stop them for 3 quarters. But in that 4th quarter, you can't stop them for a full 60 minutes. We saw it with the 49ers. We saw it recently with the Chargers just a few weeks ago. It's an impossible task to keep down the Chiefs for a full 4 quarters. And as soon as you give them some sort of life, they capitalize. Same thing with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks this year. They moved to 5-0. And how about DK Metcalf, too? Another clutch touchdown catch in a massive moment. 2 touchdowns, 93 yards yesterday from Metcalf. Had that game-winning touchdown against the Cowboys a few weeks ago. Hauls in a game-winning touchdown. A tough catch, mind you, yesterday in traffic. There's a few seconds left on the clock to win that game for the Seahawks. So he's becoming a problem. He's becoming a real problem and someone that I honestly did not think he was going to be this good with. Ole Miss, I'm a big college football fan. I watch a lot of Ole Miss. I really thought DK Metcalf was one of these combine monsters where he looks massive, he can bench a lot, he can run really fast in a straight line. Where I didn't think that honestly capitalized to the field. Like he was no joke, no hyperbole. He was the 3rd wide receiver at Ole Miss last year there. Now, he had A.J. Brown there, and obviously we know A.J. Brown, a great receiver for the Titans, so taking some of his targets there. He was even the 2nd leading receiver in Ole Miss that year. He was the 3rd leading receiver. So I thought he was one of those guys, one of those combine just caricatures almost. When you make this guy's body in the lab, he can bench press a massive, a lot. He can run really fast, but when it comes to running routes, comes to catching the ball, he just can't do it. But Metcalf has been a monster. Give a lot of credit to the Seahawks for not only hitting on him, but developing him, and making DK now, really honestly, a legitimate threat. He is slowly already starting to become one of the best wide receivers in the game. There's comparisons to Randy Moss. There's comparisons to Terrell Owens. I'm not ready to go there just yet. But body-wise, body type-wise, he's a massive human being. He's a massive specimen. He runs really fast. Makes catches in traffic. He is already year number 2 in a massive problem. And that's only going to get better. Be on the lookout for DK Metcalf taking over the league. And finally, for quick hits here, I feel a little weird doing it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm gonna take a little victory lap. I'm going to take a little bow here. If you go back to Hickey's Pickers on Thursday, the upset special, I told you Dolphins +9, going to San Francisco, taking on the 49ers. This had Ryan Fitzpatrick bounce-back game written all over it. All over it. This is what Ryan Fitzpatrick does in his career. He plays well at the start of the season. People are feeling good. Fitzmagic, it's a fun little story. He's having fun out there. Right? He's making these crazy plays. Win or lose, he's giving his team a chance to win. Then on Thursday night against the Jaguars, he just takes over. Throwing the ball all over the yard, completing every pass it feels like he drops back to complete. Dolphins roll in that game, blow out the Jaguars. Then, once the love kind of gets up high, everyone's feeling Ryan Fitzpatrick, giving him some love, giving him some praise. He goes back in the tank. Struggles. Didn't play well against the Seahawks. Now, Seahawks, their defense has been spotty. He doesn't really play well. And guess what? At the first sign of trouble, at the first sign of struggling, the Tua questions start popping up. Is Tua going to play this week? Should Tua play this week? Brian Flores fielded a lot of Tua talking about when he's going to play. Is he healthy enough to play? Questions. Flores said we're going to play Fitz this week. We'll see how it goes. So now the tide's starting to turn. The momentum from the fans and the media is to put Tua in. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, as he always does, back up against the wall, balls out. 350 yards yesterday, 3 touchdowns. The Dolphins obliterate the 49ers. Blow them out. Wasn't even a game. Game was over at halftime. This had Fitz come back, Fitz magic, Fitz bounce back written all over it. So I'm going to take a little bit of a battle, a little bit of a victory lap here. Trying to warn you. I warned you. Dolphins +9. A lot of points for a Ryan Fitzpatrick-led team in a situation where you kind of knew when the momentum was turning, when the crowd was almost, leaving him to die, for you will, wanting Tua to come in, clamoring for the young guy to play. He, again, takes hold of the starting job and shows you why, hey, it's not Tua time just yet. So I'm curious your thoughts. Those are some of mine from week number 5 of the NFL. What is yours? What's your biggest takeaway from week number 5 in the NFL? What it stood out to you the most? We'll get your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Twitter, WWSRN_radio, WWSRN_radio, or on Twitter at Ryan Hickey Show. We'll get your thoughts on the air, read them. And when we come back, we'll finish a little college football. The SEC, not immune to chaos. The SEC is just like the rest of us. We'll tell you what that means next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And we're back here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, taking you to the top of the hour, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Make sure to like us on Facebook, throw us a follow on Twitter, WWSRN_radio. Download the app, WWSRN, if you're on iOS, Worldwide Sports Network on Android, also on Facebook. That way you can get a notification anytime, really any and every time a show goes live, because we have a ton of great content. If you're a Jets fan, there's a great Jets show every Sunday night. Unfortunately, most Sunday nights are going to be filled with pain and misery. But hey, you know what? Misery loves company, and they would love you to be a part of the show and listen on. Errol Marks does a great job with all the shows he hosts, Down to the Wire, Below the Mic. host an MMA show on Friday nights. Really anything in the sports world that you are a fan of. Fantasy football, we have a great show. Ton of content here on the Worldwide Sports Network, Monday through Sunday, 24/7. You can get it all here. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, or download the app WWSRN on iOS, Worldwide Sports Network on Android, and you'll be up to date, in tune with every single show that goes live here right on the network at the touch of a button. So we did a lot of NFL. I'm getting your thoughts. Should the Colts bench Phillip Rivers? My answer is yes. Why Andy Dalton holds the keys to Dak Prescott's future in Dallas, and the Falcons continue to stay the Falcons. Now, it will be remiss here, bro. I do want to get to college football. I do want to mention this really quickly. Michael Thomas, not playing tonight on Monday Night Football. In case you missed it, change your fantasy team if you had him playing, and it's not injury-related. So, sure, it could say questionable. Sure, it could say he thinks they're, injury-wise, his ankle should be good enough to play. He's not playing, and it's not injury-related. He instead punched his teammate in practice this week, and now is being disciplined by not playing. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's 2020. Maybe it's just the pandemic. We're all frustrated, right? Everyone's tensions. I felt like even me personally, maybe I'm a little more on edge than normal, whether it's at work, whether it's just trying to relax at home. Just, I feel like maybe everyone's nerves are kind of jacked up a little bit because of what we've been dealing with the last few months here. But whether it's Earl Thomas punching someone in practice, now Michael Thomas punching a teammate in practice, this is crazy. It's a football sport. Football's an emotional sport, as is any sport, really. But you never see it escalate to this level. You rarely see it escalate to where physical altercations happen between teammates, and now we've seen it twice in the NFL in just a few weeks. I don't know what was said, what set Michael Thomas off. He never really seemed like an emotional guy. He never was really a guy that had a lot of distractions, but something happened. Something happened, and now he is out, at least for tonight's game against the Chargers, for punching a teammate, non-injury related for sure. That was just a wild headline for sure, to say the least. That kind of got lost in all the news that happened yesterday. We just wanted to mention that before we did get out of here on the top of the hour. A lot of pro football we discussed from week number 5. Some college football as well that I want to get into because, man, what a weekend it was. And I'm going to start with the SEC Conference overall because we've talked about the Big 12 in past weeks just eating each other up, right? The Pac-12 is known for it. The Pac-12 is known for cannibalizing itself. All the best teams lose once, twice, 3 times. And that's partly why the Pac-12 is not really looked upon in the same light as is the SEC, as is the Big Ten. Is because part of the reason why is because the Pac-12 never really has many playoff contending teams because they all beat each other. And they're all on late at night, but they all also beat each other, so there's no reason to tune in late at night. And now, because there's no other option but to play yourself, right? Teams are playing and conferences are playing conference-only schedules because of the pandemic. So you have no other option but to beat yourself, but to eat yourself. And even the SEC, the big, bad SEC, the litmus test for all the other conferences of how great they want to be, the gold standard for college football conferences. Even the SEC is not immune to chaos. Texas A&M started the chaos going, upset number 4 Florida on Saturday, 41-38. And they joined now the likes of the Big 12 and the Pac-12 of chaos erupting really at any place and anywhere. For the most part, we always see the SEC as kind of immune to chaos. They are always that conference that always is very top-heavy. The teams in the bottom may stink more than any other team. Now, the Pac-12, for the most part, 1 through 12, is pretty much, there's not too much of a talent gap. The teams at the bottom are never really the worst teams in the league. The teams at the top are never the best in all of college football. The SEC is a total opposite. They have 2 or 3 great teams, top 5 teams in the country, and their bottom teams are bad. Vanderbilt comes to mind. Arkansas can be in that conversation up to this year. But now even the SEC is not immune. Texas A&M landed the first upset. They landed the first punch, kind of dropped the first grenade, as you will, to lessen some of the top heaviness of the SEC. And guess what? This won't be the last time this happens. The SEC is actually a deep conference this year, which sure on the surface sounds like, okay, of course they're a deep conference. They have great teams. It's a gauntlet. But the teams in the bottom, outside of Vanderbilt, are getting better. And that's not a good thing. That's not what the SEC wants. So while the SEC loves to be top heavy. They want Alabama at the top of the rankings. They want Florida. They want Georgia. They want as many teams in the top of the rankings as possible. What they don't want is what happens to the Big 12. What happened to the Pac-12. As everyone beats each other, and in doing so, you lessen the perception of the conference overall on a national level. I mean, on the same day you had A&M beat Florida, number 14 in the country, you had Auburn escape a near collapse against Arkansas. You had the Golden Child, the Golden Goose, Alabama, almost fall to the hands of Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. Auburn kicks a game-winning field goal with 7 seconds left in just a slop fest against Arkansas, who's proven me a lot tougher than they were really in the last 3 or 4 years. Credit to Sam Pittman coming in and changing the culture of Arkansas. Alabama had to fight off and continually had to kind of put Ole Miss down because Ole Miss just kept coming offensively. They kept scoring points. And Ole Miss scored 48 points. And their defense is god-awful. It's one of the worst in the college football. So it's not a shock they allowed 63. But they can score. Lane Kiffin can drop some good plays. And the last thing the SEC wanted as a conference was for Florida to lose, was for Auburn to lose, was for Alabama to lose. And all of a sudden, there's questions of how good the SEC truly is. This also, to me, is a great example of why the SEC plays 8 conference games, while the Big 12, while the Big 10, and while the Pac-12 play 9. This highlights why the SEC wants to play at the least amount of conference games possible, because it ensures less losses overall as a conference, and it helps to build up these better teams to get that nice record and prevent the conference from eating each other like it is this year. If they could play less than 8 games, conference games, they would probably do it. Because that means you can schedule more FCS teams. You can schedule more week out-of-conference games to give yourself more wins to pad the stats. So this was just another weekend in college football. It shows you even the big bad SEC not immune from chaos. Because really, outside of, I'm going to exclude Vanderbilt because they've been just god-awful. Missouri upset LSU. I apologize for not even including them in this conversation. Any team outside of Vanderbilt shows they can hang with any team on a given Sunday or a given Saturday. Not what the SEC wants. Quickly to Florida. I still have faith Florida can win the SEC East. I still think this offense, led by Kyle Trask, when push comes to shove, when they play Georgia in a few weeks, I think that they'll be ready to go, answer the bell, and be the difference. They still have a month, essentially, before that game to figure out their defense. The defense stinks. Flat out stinks. They lost on the game Saturday against Texas A&M. The defense will hold them back. But they have a month to get it together, figure it out before they play the biggest game on the schedule against Georgia to determine who will go to the SEC conference title game. I'm not concerned about Florida. Not concerned. How about the ACC? We'll go to the ACC. Kings stay Kings. Okay, Saturday night, Clemson, Miami, number 1 versus number 7. Highly anticipated matchup. Clemson showed why, yet again, year after year, no matter the hype, no matter what team is trying to chase them and knock them off their pedestal this year, they flex and showed why they are the top dogs in the ACC. Now, Miami, they had a nice start to their season. A little bumpy to start, but they blew out Louisville. They blew out Florida State. De'Ara King coming in with Rhett Lashlee as a new offensive coordinator. Miami actually looked competent on offense. They actually looked like a 2020 offense. They were stuck in the 1980s for a very long time. They could not get competent quarterback play. They could really not get competent offensive play. So De'Ara King changed that. Rhett Lashlee changed that. Were they as good as their 7th ranking in the country? I'd probably say no. I was obviously very inflated by not everyone playing right now. But Clemson on Saturday night came out, flat out bullied Miami's offense. Just bullied them. Punched them in the mouth, didn't let them get anything going, and they showed again why they are the kings of the ACC. Now, overall, the conference has improved compared to the last year and the last few years because the ACC, from top to bottom, is one of the worst conferences, if not the worst, out of the Power 5. They have Clemson and everyone else is bad, like really bad. So they added Notre Dame this year, which really helps their strength of schedule. North Carolina's on the rise. They're recruiting really well. They're solid so far. I think they're still a year or two away. And get those guys in there, get the good players on the field. But Mac Brown is doing an incredible job of rebuilding and retransforming, I should say. If I can talk, that'd be great. North Carolina to be a perennial contender soon. So they're not as bad. The depth is getting a lot better as it was in past years. But something I just highlighted to me, the gap between Clemson and everyone else is very wide. The rest of the ACC from 2 to 14, maybe tightening, maybe getting better. Maybe that gap is closing between the worst team and the second best team. But that gap between the second best team and Clemson is still very large and very wide. Clemson, again, showed on Saturday why Kings stay Kings. How about the college football playoff? I know it's very early to start thinking about the college football playoff. The rankings don't come out for another month. We don't even have everyone playing yet. The Big Ten plays in 2 weeks. The Pac-12 will play in a few weeks after that. But I want to kind of just at least get you prepared and get you embraced to what to expect this college football playoff to be once we get to 4 teams. Because in the past, right, when it first started back in 2014 up until this past season, the formula, the resume you needed to have was basically be undefeated, maybe have one loss, but have it be a close loss, a tight loss to a really good team. And then you somehow hope that really good team either isn't in your own conference, isn't in your own division, and you at least get to your conference title game. But undefeated was always kind of the resume or the route you had to go. Again, maybe you get lucky in 1 year. You have one loss, you can revenge that loss, really pad your resume and give yourself a chance. That's really what it came down to. Anything after one loss, you're done. Your season's over. Pack it up. We'll see you next year. I don't think that's going to be the case this year so far. Now, again, it's still early. We still have 2 months to go before the rankings come out finally, and we have our 4 teams playing for the college football playoff. Again, the Big Ten still hasn't even kicked off their season yet. And the Pac-12, if they can try to get someone in now, that's a whole other discussion. But, hey, they're going to try to get someone in. They still haven't played yet. So a lot can happen. But really, outside of Clemson so far, because, again, I think the gap between Clemson and everyone else in the ACC is still very wide. So outside of Clemson, I think going undefeated this year for any team is going to be extremely tough. Extremely tough. So I think a lot of these teams are going to have one loss going in. One loss on the resume. They'll be fighting about which loss is better. But usually, we see Alabama undefeated. Usually we'll see Oklahoma either undefeated or with one loss but win their title. Or win their conference championship, I should say. And they'll get in. Clemson, we know, is usually undefeated. I think we're going to have to change our expectations this year to think about what are we going to expect and what really would rule out being out of the playoff. Because before, the formula was 2 losses. Once you get your second loss, you're done. No 2-loss team has ever made the playoff. I think that's going to change this year. Because we just saw in the SEC alone, right, the gold standard of conferences. Alabama had a near scare against Ole Miss. Auburn, although they lost already, need to squeak one out against Arkansas, one of the worst teams, in theory, we thought coming into this year in all of college football. They're proving that not to be the case. Maybe they're a lot better than we thought. Florida, number 4 in the nation, falls to Texas A&M. LSU, again, already one loss, but they lose to Mizzou. There's landmines up and down the SEC conference, meaning that really any game could be a tripwire for Alabama, for Georgia, for Florida again. So I think now, 2 losses doesn't exactly rule you out of the season, rule you out of the playoff. For the Big 12, maybe, that'd be a different story. For the Big 10, maybe that could be a different story because they're playing less games. But if you're in the ACC, if you're in an SEC, this could be a year where 2 losses and you're still right in the mix. You're still 1 or 2 breaks away from making the playoff. There's going to be a wild year. It already has been a wacky year. And I expect more chaos, more zaniness, more craziness. And speaking of which, to finish off here my thoughts on this college football Saturday. Speaking of zaniness, craziness, wildness, how about that Red River game? Oklahoma and Texas. To me, watching that game, almost 5 hours, mind you. Talk about pace of play. We were here out in baseball. The NFL is trying to speed their game up, and here's Texas and Oklahoma playing almost a 5-hour game. Watching that game, to me, perfectly encapsulated why college football is the best sport on God's green earth here. And you had amazing plays up and down the field from both teams. Sam Ehlinger, not the biggest fan of his. Don't get me wrong. He made some nice plays on Saturday. Great runs, great throws. Spencer Rattler had an up and down game, but he made some nice throws. So you had amazing plays from both sides. You had some mind-numbing plays. Spencer Rattler throwing some bad picks early on. You had some big plays. You had college kickers coming in. You had block kick in overtime. You had a missed kick to win the game in overtime from Oklahoma. Obviously, you had the rivalry aspect mixed in there. Two teams that don't like each other, two fan bases. Even though the Cotton Bowl wasn't as filled as it normally would be, still a very solid atmosphere for the about, what is it, looked like 20% filled. It had everything. It had ups. It had downs. It had excitement. It had depression. To me, that, like, if you try to, or someone doesn't understand just the craziness of college football and why it's the best, you just play that game and have them sit back and watch it. Because it's wild. You never know what to expect. You never know what's going to happen. When you rely on 18 to 22-year-old kids to execute consistently, that's never the case. And that's why massive plays happen. That's why bad decisions happen. Things you'll never think you'll see on a football field happen. That's what makes it crazy. That's what makes it fun. In the game, honestly, let's call it what it is, meaningless for the most part for the playoff discussion. Lost a lot of juice because both teams are coming off losses. Oklahoma was 1-2 going to that game, which is crazy. Texas was, for a big year for them, significantly underachieved. Now they have 2 losses, excuse me. But still, despite that, it was an awesome back-and-forth game to watch. It was so much fun. And that's just, again, why, to me, college football is king. The craziness that you have there just shows why the chaos is the best. You honestly never know what to expect. And it was so much fun. Not even have a dog in the fight. It was awesome. Awesome to watch. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Before we get out of here, I do want to mention this real quickly. Some more bad news, unfortunately, in 2020. What else is new? But the legendary baseball player, Joe Morgan, unfortunately, has passed away earlier this morning, it looks like. It was on those big red machine days back of the Cincinnati Reds back in the day. Twice won the NL MVP. 10-time All-Star. And at least for me, growing up a little bit younger, remember him a lot on Sunday Night Baseball with John Miller. Very sad, but unfortunately, Joe Morgan did pass away earlier this morning. Looks like it's coming down on my Twitter timeline. So we send our condolences to him and his family, to the Reds. And unfortunately, another big name, another celebrity, does pass away here in 2020. So just wanted to at least say that and make you informed if you weren't unaware before we do get out of here. But we do appreciate everyone who tuned in on this Monday. Appreciate to Nick for filling the Facebook with a ton of comments, including him witnessing the worst karaoke performance maybe in history, by far what I've done, and that was trying to sing to Van Halen's Panama back in college. Easily the worst karaoke rendition ever of that song. So we will not honor Van Halen, or I should say I will honor Van Halen. Unfortunately, he passed away by not singing Panama again, not having him turn in his grave for just that awful, awful rendition to his great song. So we appreciate Nick bringing us that memory lane for that one. Appreciate you listening and tuning in. Always loving you guys comment. Always loving you guys listen. Do appreciate it. We'll talk to you on Thursday, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.